Δεν χαιρετόμαστε, όχι.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Honorary guests, on behalf of Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, Dr. Ernst Reichel, I would like to welcome you all at this special event on the occasion of the beginning of the German EU Council Presidency. My name is Alexandra Voudouri, and I'm honored to be the moderator of this event. Since midnight, a new 6-month journey for the European Union began with Germany at the helm of the EU Council during a crucial and tough time for Europe and the world. The bloc is facing immense challenges, a global pandemic and resultant recession. With the recovery plan still to be agreed and with the conference on the future of Europe to kick off this autumn, the German EU presidency will have enormous tasks ahead. The expectations are already great and many. Germany has assumed the EU presidency for 13 times since 1957. Those who are not superstitious and, of course, pro-Europeans already claim that this presidency could be a defining and historic moment for the Union and Germany itself to find a strong position and voice in this continuously changing world. Well, I leave it here. I have to tell you that this central open-air cinema, Ciné Aegli, which is hosting today's event, was chosen by the German embassy here in Athens, not only to facilitate a public event during Corona circumstances, but also for all of us to enjoy a special trailer, a special movie trailer, made especially for Germany's EU presidency. So, time to turn off the lights and enjoy it. Well, at least we take a look on the titles and about the priorities of the EU presidency. And of course, I really like the end of it, that challenges need our reply. All those involved in European affairs and politics do know that a 6-month EU presidency looks like a marathon and is definitely not a sprint race. And since EU presidencies conclude circles known for almost 15 years now as presidencies trios, they also look like a relay race. So one presidency carries the baton to the next one. For this reason, I call on stage both the ambassadors of Germany and of Croatia, His Excellencies Dr. Ernst Reichel and Dr. Alexander Sunko, respectively, for this strongly symbolic gesture.
Thank you very much. Once again. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, a very heartfelt welcome to this reception on the occasion of Germany assuming the EU Council Presidency. Maybe you are feeling the way I do. I really looked forward to being with you tonight after a long period of almost isolation. On the other hand, we had to keep this reception small and limited, and I would ask you to show your newly acquired skills in social distancing. Thank you in advance for that. I'm talking to you tonight also on behalf of my colleagues from Portugal and from Slovenia, and our three countries form the so-called trio presidency, as was mentioned. For the next 18 months, we are close partners in moving forward Europe on the basis of a joint program we adopted. And our gratitude goes to the outgoing presidency, Croatia, which had to assume this role for the first time under the most challenging circumstances nobody had been able to imagine, and they did a remarkable job. Bravo. Another big word of thanks goes to Minister Varvitsiotis, who has agreed to speak to us in a moment. You can imagine assuming the EU presidency under the current unprecedented double crisis of pandemic and economic recession is a daunting task. A lot of the long preparation work for the presidency had to be scrapped and redone on the fly. New top priority tasks came up with top urgency. Other top priority tasks with top urgency were already known before and remain. At the same time, the virus has greatly diminished the working capacity of council structures in Brussels. I don't want to give you an exhaustive list of all top priorities, but just name a few. Before the summer break, we need an agreement on the recovery fund of up to 750 billion euros, designed to alleviate the economic consequences of the pandemic and in connection with the multi-annual financial framework for the coming 7 years. The recovery fund, plus the preceding already agreed measures, add up to roughly 1.3 trillion euros. They are a remarkable display of the European solidarity that many negativists denied exists. After August, the negotiations on the future relationship to the UK will keep the EU highly busy. The urgency and pressure are tremendous because neither the UK nor the EU can afford an additional hard blow to our economies in a no-deal scenario at the end of the year. And then let me just name a few more hugely challenging topics. Reform of the European asylum system, climate policy, the so-called Green Deal, rule of law. Ladies and gentlemen, Europe's recovery in all senses and in all aspects must now be front and center for us all, and is up to us Europeans to rise to this occasion. Greece is a valued and indispensable friend and partner in this endeavor, a partner with the best European credentials and with the experience of coming out of a major crisis under big, but at the same time necessary sacrifice. We Europeans must take not only our solidarity to a new level, I already spoke about that, but also our coherence and our ability to address problems and crises. We can only overcome our challenges together and the exceptional situation we are in must push us into action. And being here in Greece, in the Eastern Mediterranean, I cannot fail to say that also in international politics, we Europeans must strengthen our cohesion and loyalty. Loyalty to each other, loyalty to our European values, and loyalty to the European idea. If we allow ourselves to be divided in the region or on the global scene, we run the danger of being swept around like autumn leaves in the wind. This is true for every EU country, also for a comparatively larger one like Germany. Dear friends, thank you in advance for working with us over the months to come. But before we come to that, let us spend a pleasant evening. And now I'm happy to pass the floor to the alternate Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Miltiadis Varvitsiotis.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Actually, Ambassador, you forgot that. It's not my. I shouldn't carry it back home. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I think it's a pleasure for everybody to see each other in person in such a nice event after so many months. And that poses for everybody a challenge. And this was the challenge that the Croatian embassy had to meet, the extraordinary circumstances of COVID-19. I remember Andrea Plankovic, who presented in the European Council of April when we discussed the enlargement, and he presented the nice hall built in Zagreb in order to host this meeting, and unfortunately all the seats were empty. I think that this was the way the Croatian presidency took up the challenge of this confinement period needs to be noted and congratulated by everybody for your endless efforts in order to bring us all together in such a difficult time. Now Germany starts the presidency of the European Council in more challenging times. We don't have to meet only the extraordinary circumstances of the COVID-19. We don't have only to meet the difficulties in reopening our traveling within Europe, but we have to meet also the economic consequences of this pandemic. So far, a series of measures that have been taken gave us relief in order to meet the huge challenge posed by the restrictions imposed. But definitely, Europe should stand up and come up to the occasion and meet the challenge with generosity, determination, and should meet this challenge really fast in order to respond to what will be the pressure of the markets. Unfortunately, until now, we have not come to a conclusion. But we as Greece, we really support the proposal of the European Commission for the Next Generation EU package, the Recovery Fund, and we really support the conjunction between the MFF and the Next Generation EU in order to give to the countries the adequate means to meet the challenge. When I was listening to Ambassador, they have prepared me a lot of things. I'm not going to read all this stuff. When I was listening to the Ambassador, but also to all my meetings that we had with my German counterparts, and especially Michael Roth, my counterpart with whom we communicate quite often, I could state that the priorities of the German presidency are perfectly in line with the concerns, the priorities of the Greek government. And that gives us a great relief because we fit absolutely within the agenda, and we will try to work very closely with the presidency and the following presidencies in order to have to meet their goals. But definitely what I wanted to say is that what the Recovery Fund represents for us, it represents for us a great challenge. And I think that European Union has to meet the challenge of the occasion and to be, as I said, generous. I want to make two comments on that in order to understand why we say so. We don't say so because we are coming out of the 10-year crisis and through the first moments that we try to march again on the markets, we are faced with this great challenge. We are not saying so because our primarily economic activity, which is tourism, that represents almost a quarter of our economy, it's so severely hit. And we are not saying so because we have challenged so heavily by our neighbors in the immigration sector, but also in our national sovereignty by all the actions that we face in the Aegean Sea constantly every day. We say that because Europe should meet the challenge and be in the same line than the other world economic players are. The package of 750 billion euros, together with all the facilities already agreed, represent a 9.3% of our European GDP, while the United States have already agreed in measures that represent the 13% of their GDP, and Japan itself have agreed to a package that constitutes the 21% of their GDP. So in order to be in line with our international competition, if we say so, or international partners, economic partners, we should meet the burden they are putting to us. And I think that it's important to agree soon for this package in order not to let, especially during the August period, that as we traditionally know, markets are heated by what we call the August effect. A new euro crisis hits us and will make the euro interest rates rise like crazy. This is something that we should avoid. We should maintain the stability of Eurozone. We should maintain the stability of the euro itself, and therefore we should protect our common currency and our economies by putting an end to speculation by agreeing on this package. The second thing that I want to comment, and this is a challenge that the German presidency definitely has to meet within the next few weeks, is how this package is going to be governed. Having the experience of 3 memoranda and having the experience of being under constant observation by the European authorities and IMF for the last 10 years, I can tell you, being a politician myself and as having served in positions that I was under constant oversight by the Troika of the time, that extreme pressure put on the countries on monitoring how this money is going to spend and narrowing the windows of flexibility in order to respond to each and different country and the needs of each and different country will not make this package a package that will deal immediately and with the proper way to the crisis. Therefore, limiting bureaucracy and limiting layers of decision in order to have the disbursement of this package is very important in order to send the signal that this money are available and are available for those that are more in need. I would like briefly to comment on the the other items of the agenda. Migration and asylum policy. It lasted for so long, already 5 years, that we haven't decided to review our common asylum and migration policy. And that left room to others, like Turkey, to pick up the challenge or see it an opportunity. And we have seen what happened last February and March in Evros region by the instrumentalization of migrants and refugees in order to blackmail not Athens, but Brussels, Berlin, and all the other European capitals on behalf of Turkey for more money and for more attention. So we have to conclude this discussion. I'm ready to work, and we are ready to work with all our European partners under the guidance and leadership of the German presidency in order to come to a conclusion in a viable solution that unites us all. We have the same security concerns and we have the same humanitarian concerns. And I think that we can find a common ground. A word on Brexit. It's a difficult decision, and it has been a difficult decision ever since from the beginning. I don't think that neither of the parties will be happier after the divorce. I think the opposite. But nevertheless, we respect the decision of the British people to seek their own future outside our European house. At the same time, what we have achieved so far in cooperation should not be put in danger, because this will jeopardize Brexit itself and the economic stability of the Union. Therefore, there is room for a good and proper deal. I'm sure Germany will do whatever it takes in order to achieve that, but it needs also from London to have open eyes and ears in the proposals coming from Brussels. And the discussion on rule of law. You know, whenever I'm at the General Affairs Council of European Union and we're discussing the rule of law issue and potential shortfalls from member states, we always understand that it's a very difficult discussion for everybody. It's not a matter of personal relations, it's not a matter of national relations, it's a matter of following common rules for everybody. It's important to stand together on the discussion and be clear. We ask the rule of law and we ask other countries, third countries, to observe the rule of law, and we should definitely have it in our home as one cornerstone of our common policy. Dear Ambassador, dear all, dear ambassadors, your excellencies, dear all, you know that for us it's a very challenging time. And it's a very challenging time because of the increasing heat coming from Ankara in the Aegean water and on the Greek soil. Greece has decided, by the voice of Konstantinos Karamanlis, that the shelter that is dedicated for our future is within the European family. And consecutive Greek governments have cried out to the Greek public that they are dedicated Europeans, and actually we paid our dues with all the price that we paid through the 10-year crisis in order to maintain and keep ourselves at the core of European Union. And we feel safe within European Union. And what we want from European Union is come up and stand up with one voice to say to our neighbors that no action that contests the sovereignty of a member state is going to be tolerated, and is not going to be, and that any kind of action, is going to be punished by European Union in the way that the European Union response. We don't expect tanks, airplanes, or patrol boats, but we really expect to send a message that the economic relations between European Union and Turkey will not be the same if Turkey doesn't observe the boundaries, the borders, and the sovereignty over the Greek islands. I think this is the basis in order to have an open, frank discussion with Turkey on all the other matters that puzzle us. We can discuss everything. What I think that nobody is willing to discuss is any kind of sovereignty issues. And this message, I think, with one voice, should be sent to Ankara in order to level down all this tension that has been accumulated over the past months, the past 12 months at least, and over the past years. We believe that with Turkey we have so many things to shorten out, and to be the decision to make is going to be for a mutual profit, that any sovereignty issues should be left behind. Dear Ambassador, dear all, I wish you all the best for your presidency. As a friend of mine told me one day, he said to me, a journalist actually, he told me, you know, when we are talking to Europe, at the end it comes to Germany. I hope that you meet that great challenge in order to keep our union together, to make the compromises needed. We are ready to work with you. We are ready to facilitate you, and we are ready to give room for these compromises in order to succeed and send a message out in the world. And this is that Europe is here, and strong, is getting stronger, and it's the best place to live on earth. Thank you very much.
Well, from both speeches, we got an idea of the priorities, the challenges ahead, and of course of the expectations from the minister's speech, at least from Greece. So we would probably like to elaborate on all these issues that you raised up in both your speeches. So for our panel discussion, now I have to call again on stage Mr. Minister Varvitsiotis, Ambassador of Germany, Dr. Ernst Reichel, Ambassador of Croatia, Dr. Alexander Sunko, Ambassador of Portugal, Ms. Elena Paiva, and Ambassador of Slovenia, Matthias Longar, and Deputy Head of the Representation of the European Commission to Greece, Mr. George Moscovici. We all have our microphones. I will begin with the host of this special event and with a question for His Excellency, Mr. Ernst Reichel. Well, Your Excellency, you just outlined for us perfectly and in a very brief way, and thank you for this, the agenda for Germany's EU presidency. It is well known that member states, especially those of the South, and we've heard the speech of the minister as well, have been looking for Germany to play a bigger role in dealing with the consequences of what Chancellor Angela Merkel herself has described as the biggest challenge in the European Union's history, the coronavirus pandemic. Since expectations seem to be extremely high, can the fine line between expectations and reality be found, allowing Germany to claim a successful EU presidency at the end of this semester? And secondly, since you are German ambassador here to Greece, Germany is to be honored country at this year's Thessaloniki International Fair. What does this mean for Greek-German relations, and what should we expect? And as you can see, it's a question full of expectations. Your Excellency, thank you.
Right. Can you hear me? Is it working? Yes, it's working. Now, you are right, expectations are high, and every time the expectations are met, a new layer of expectations comes on top. I would say that the 750 billion package that is under discussion in the European Council this month is an unprecedented, in magnitude and in quality, unprecedented initiative. And if we manage to get this through, which is not so easy, as you all know, if we manage to agree on this with the necessary, maybe smaller modifications, that would be a tremendous success. And forgive me for saying that I think the expectations as far as this is concerned should be considered met. And if we then also agree on an agreement with the United Kingdom about the future relationship with them, then I think even already by October, one could maybe consider that Germany has done its work. But then there will be more things, as I mentioned, so I think we will take everything as far as we can possibly do. But it will be an extreme challenge and testing for everybody. Now about the Thessaloniki International Fair, which you also mentioned, also this will now happen under the very special and challenging circumstances of the pandemic. I think under these circumstances, the fair takes particular importance because it is, so to say, the starting shot, the starting point for our joint economic recovery in Europe as Europeans, but in this particular setting then Germany and Greece in particular. So it was Thessaloniki International Fair is always a big event, and we are proud to be the honored country this year. But it so happens that I believe this year it will be of particular symbolic importance for both Greece, Germany, and maybe even the rest of the European Union.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much, and thank you for being so brief. Now, a question to alternate Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Miltiadis Varvitsiotis. Mr. Minister, some Greek officials already claim that the German EU presidency is fortunate for Greece.
What?
Could you elaborate?
Fortunate.
Could you elaborate a little bit on this? And secondly, you have said in the past that in European affairs there is a resurgence of a set of national interests. Could the pandemic crisis change this, and how could the EU counter this trend?
Well, I think first of all, if you can see a big challenge as an opportunity, then the Germans are fortunate that they have this big challenge ahead of them. I know that the preparation for the presidency was totally different. And now they have to come up with a challenge of really meeting the economic burden of the crisis. And as I said in my opening remarks, I find this is going to be a critical moment for Europe. If we decide for a package that it should be generous enough, like the 750 billion, and flexible enough, and we do it in the right way at the right time, then we'll definitely give the Europeans security and safety that now is missing. And this comes to the second question, how national interests come with our common home. I think that it's up to us, it's up to the countries to decide that we put our common interest ahead of us, and we have all the opportunity and all the future to also work for our national interest. But if Europe limits itself, doesn't come to a conclusion, one European Council after another European Council comes without a conclusion on the budgetary issues and on the recovery fund, then I think that definitely national interest and the voices that push for national interest are going to be prevailing in the national debate, especially the voices with the anti-European voices within our political spectrum that at the end are going to jeopardize the whole system. I told you, I believe that we are dedicated Europeans. PASOK, Syriza, Nea Demokratia, and other parties have voted for difficult measures that we have imposed on our citizens. And all these three parties have accumulated more than 80% in the last elections. That means that we have paid our dues to stay in Europe. I think this is not the process, and I don't wish anybody else to pass through this process. But definitely, nationalistic voices are going to be there to threaten what our common goal is.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. As a journalist, I would really love to have follow-up questions for both of you, but time is really restricted and I have to be German now. And taking it a step back, going to the previous presidency, the Croatian presidency, one question for His Excellency, Dr. Aleksandar Sunko. It was the first time Croatia assumed the EU's presidency, and unfortunately an unprecedented crisis derailed the agenda. However, milestone decisions have been taken, for instance, in regards to the European Union's enlargement process. What do you, Your Excellency, consider to be the legacy of your country's EU presidency, and what issue that may have slipped a little bit behind schedule in recent months you would like to see being tackled by the Germans?
Yes, thank you very much. I agree with you. This enlargement issue is the highlight of the Croatian presidency. Let me remind you that in March, the Council took the decision under our presidency to launch accession negotiations with North Macedonia and Albania. In this decision, we are grateful for the support by our major European partners, certainly among them the Greek government also, that has ever since the Thessaloniki summit more than 10 years ago being supportive in this enlargement of the EU, particularly toward the Western Balkans. In the same spirit, in May, the Zagreb summit was held, unfortunately, as Minister Varvitsiotis said, as an online event, but still it did I imagine that it did get this important enlargement message across. As for the issues that are left to the following presidency, I think the most important points were already mentioned by Ambassador Reichel. There is certainly the issue of the multi-annual financial framework. The importance of this issue has been even enhanced by the consequences of the epidemic and the current situation in Europe. And again, we agree with those European countries that advocate a comprehensive solution of the recovery package and the financial framework together. To this end, the Croatian presidency has held a lot of consultations, both generally, horizontally, and sectorally. And we expect that the following presidency will build on the discussions that we held and will carry this important point to its successful end. Of course, being in Greece and in the Eastern Mediterranean, I should also mention the migration problem, which was also not actually foreseen in this way that it actually developed. But you may remember that even before the major outbreak of the epidemic and the lockdown that followed, the top EU leaders, including the Croatian Prime Minister and the Greek Prime Minister, visited the Greek-Turkish border in order to inspect the situation there in light of the migration pressure. And immediately after that, in March, there was we managed to organize an extraordinary Justice and Home Affairs meeting, which inter alia decided on a package of support to the Greek government in dealing with these issues. So, of course, the migration issue will not go away, but I think we made a good start, and we made a good institutional framework work in order to deal with these issues, and those are the main points that we are leaving for further development.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for your reply. Now, taking a step forward and going to the second leg of the new trio presidency, going to Portugal, and I'm really happy to welcome Her Excellency, Ms. Elena Paiva. And I'm really happy that I have another woman in this panel discussion. Well, Your Excellency, the last time Portugal assumed the EU presidency was way back in 2007. A lot has happened since then, and that has tested the core existence of the European project. But unfortunately, the challenges are still here. So how is Lisbon getting ready for the upcoming EU presidency, and what should be the main focus of the new GPS trio's vision? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alexandra, for your question. Good evening to everybody. Let me start by thanking my German colleague and the German presidency for organizing this event and the launching of the trio of presidencies. Actually, it's not the first time that we are working together. We start as a trio in 2007, already the same three countries. And as far as I remember, it was a very successful, and we worked very well together. So our expectation is the same is going to happen now. And so I wish all the success, and really wish all the success to the German presidency, and that they achieve the main goals. This will be the fourth presidency of Portugal. And I think, although it is the first after the Treaty of Lisbon, which makes it slightly different in the way it operates, but I think we will work and do as we always do. And I think it is with tranquility, hard work, lots of dialogue, bridge builders to all the continents, and firm believers in European Union. So this will be the way we will work on this, on our presidents. As our German colleague explained, this Trio of Presidents program reflects our common vision and our main priorities. And so the overarching priority, clearly stated, is to overcome the different dimensions of the pandemic crisis. So I would say that the priorities is recovery, recovery, recovery. That will be the priority of the Trio of Presidencies. We will, of course, be working very closely and friendly and in a work way with the German presidency, because we will have to pick up the issues that they will leave to us, the next presidency. So it has to be we have to work together intensely, because it's an 18 months program. So we need to be very much, the three of us, firmly together on this implementation of the program. For us, what differentiates a little bit our presidency and the main focus would be that we believe that the economic recovery must go hand in hand with the social dimension. And so for the Portuguese presidency, our main priority will be to set a comprehensive and robust recovery plan to address the economic consequences in all its dimensions, including the social impacts. In that sense, the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights will be a core priority of the Portuguese presidency. This pandemic has proven the Europeans the value of the European model, social model, and we should work to strengthen it. And in this context, we will organize a social summit, largely inspired in the Gothenburg model, at the level of heads of state and government in May in the city of Porto, in Portugal. And the idea is to give some political impetus to the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights. Of course, the priorities of the trio are aligned with the strategic agenda 2019-2024, especially the green and the digital agendas. So that's a normal agenda of the European Union, but I would like to underline some of also the issues that the Portuguese presidency will follow more closely, just to mention some. And that is the focus on Europe's role on global health, including through strong multilateral action in international partnerships, the EU-Africa relationships, because we have a strong historical relation with Africa, and we want to foster a comprehensive partnership with our African colleagues. Our future relations with the UK, we are committed to achieving a very balanced relation with the United Kingdom. We are also committed to strengthening the relations with our transatlantic partners, and we will pursue a more strategic EU-India partnership, and we will organize a EU-India summit also in May 2021 in Portugal. We also remain committed to our relationship with our countries in Latin America. So, concluding, this year was very challenging for all of us, for Europe, in the response of the COVID-19 crisis, but we are confident that together we can overcome this crisis, and what we need is unity, and to take this program forward, because we can only do this together, and that's the main message I would like to leave on the end. Thank you very much.
We thank you, Your Excellency, and I really like the fact that I was expecting it from Portugal, from a southern European member state, that there will be a social approach of all the challenges and the issues ahead. Now going to the third leg of this new trio presidency, to Slovenia, and a question to His Excellency, the Slovenian Ambassador, Mr. Matijas Longar. I hope I have pronounced your surname right. Longar?
Yes.
Your Excellency, during Slovenia's EU presidency in 2008, the main challenge was the implementation of the Lisbon Treaty. Life and the current crisis has taught us that we are unable to make safe predictions. Nevertheless, could you prepare us for what to expect as a priority of your presidency in the second semester of 2021? And back in 2008, the European prospects of the Western Balkans was one of the key issues. So would you perhaps again prioritize again the Union's enlargement? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Well, I should say at the beginning that Slovenia is delighted to hold the EU presidency for the second time in such a fine company with Germany and Portugal. I believe we really made a great job years ago. Well, the trio is taking the presidency in the times of hopefully we could say post-crisis reality that hit our countries, the EU and the whole world. Slovenia has started its own preparation to the EU presidency well before the current crisis, but of course the new COVID reality actually changed a lot of previous visions. I would like to say that we have to improve the actual capacities of the EU and the member states to tackle the global crisis, just a pandemic, global cyber attacks or migration pressures which can arise due to the climate changes or security issues. Therefore, we should focus, or will be trying to focus on a comprehensive approach in the case of the pandemic and strengthening the resilience of the critical infrastructure and digital single market in the case of cyber attacks. We should make sure that all the necessary facilities and equipment are provided for the present and potential future crises and for strengthening the EU resilience. Our new reality must not take away our focus from the strategic priorities of the EU. It will be necessary to adopt adequate measures to restore the economic activity while building climate neutral, green, fair and social Europe. So we are sharing here, I believe, the same vision. We will also support and promote the values of the Union, including the security of our citizens by protecting our external borders and helping to facilitate the restoration of the fully functioning Schengen area. Slovenia is a country in the heart of the Middle Europe of a certain size, and one should understand that also free movement is of a great importance for my country. I would just here add that we need to make sure that you remains a part, as also the minister said, and all the three ambassadors remains a player in the vote, not a follower in the change game of globalization, but a player, a global player. This is important, especially when you said all about the percentage of the GDP and so on. The last, I hope I'm not too long, the last segment of the question, the Western Balkans. Well, you know, we believe that European perspective has been a powerful force in ensuring transformations in societies around the continent. Therefore, I believe the trio and Slovenia as well during our presidency will continue supporting the countries also of Western Balkans in the European pathway. This is for sure. This is, and of course we will advocate dynamic and credible enlargement process. Probably starting with the Republic of Albania and the Republic of North Macedonia. So this will remain also one of our priorities. So thank you very much. So.
No, we thank you, Your Excellency, and at least with this new trio, the acronym GPS, we can feel sure that Europe will not lose its destination. And one last question for the representative of the European Commission, Deputy Head, to be more precise, of the representation of the Commission here in Greece, Mr. George Moscovis. Good evening,
Moscovis.
Sir. Moscovis, excuse me. During the ongoing unprecedented crisis, Europe has acknowledged that how it fares in this emergency will determine the future of the European Union's role in the world, taking into account that the agenda of both the European Commission and for the German EU Council Presidency is full with common priorities for both. What are the top issues that both should work urgently together on to make Europe more resilient and future-proof? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, good luck to the German presidency of the European Council, the Council of the EU, and apologize for replying in Greek, although myself being Greek and you're Greek and the majority of the audience is Greek.
For not pronouncing your surname.
Don't worry. So on your question, probably the first time since the creation of the EU that the priorities of the presidency are so obvious. Any presidency from now on will need to see very closely and carefully on these priorities because, as you very well know, we're not yet done with the COVID-19. Until we're done, until the thing is dead, is off let's say, the agenda, we need to pay particular attention to the way we tackle this challenge, and the European Commission is and will be supportive to the presidencies from now on in order to make sure that the lessons we learned or we're still learning during this unfortunate situation are incorporated in the way we make policies, we design policies, and we implement them. We were caught by surprise, that's for sure. By saying we, I mean the whole planet was caught by surprise. We didn't expect this. We didn't see it coming. However, the European Commission and the EU in general, I think, played a crucial role in addressing the challenges and the problems came up with this experience. And I think we successfully are now here without really being so worried about the future, because we have prepared ourselves in such a way that makes us feel more confident to the European idea. Look what's happening outside the EU. Look at the UK. Look at the US. I think they had a record number of incidents, COVID-19, yesterday or today. So, in comparison with the rest of the world, I think we have done good, and the Commission has done quite enough, with the most important thing being the proposal on the table for the next MFF and its top-up by 750 billion euro, as the Minister mentioned earlier, for this recovery and resilience instrument, which we call it Next Generation EU. And by saying next generation, we don't mean that we abandon the current generation. We don't see only the future. We're preparing the future with our work here, with our work now, against not only this problem that we're facing, but all similar problems that we might face in the future. So having said that, I don't want to take more of your time. It's precious. I would like again to thank the German Ambassador, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I think the only wish one should extend to you is good luck. We're here to help you.
Well, thank you so much. Does anyone have any closing remark? No, any particular comment? Okay, so this is it. I wasn't hard on you, but probably I will become if you organize yet another event at the middle of the semester, Your Excellency, where we can evaluate then what has been done before the end of this challenging, indeed, EU presidency. Okay, I think that we will really love to see again the trailer of the German EU presidency. Now the conditions are ready, and before that I would like to inform all of you that following this great movie trailer you can also reach the bar and the buffet. I suppose that we all really love to hug each other and meet and kiss, or to rush to refreshments and drinks, but we have to be cautious, so we kindly ask you to keep social distances. Thank you all.
YouTube channel.
Population.
All the very best.
So windy that there was a kind of